I'm here in this video to pay homage to Joel Schumacher, the man who gave us metallic bat logos on our bat clothes, such as what we saw with Alicia Silverstone's Batgirl, either of Chris O'Donnell's Robin costumes, and the bat suits worn by Val Kilmer and George Clooney. It was very cool. It was very admirable. You didn't want the bat nipples or the codpiece, but most people didn't. But I really liked the vibe of his costumes, especially in a time before Bryan Singer's X-Men, before Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Back when this was what tactical, real-life, tangible superhero costumes looked like. Now, the costume design, and in some ways it figures because Schumacher was a costume designer before becoming a director. The costume design is one of the key things in why Schumacher is so maligned nowadays. Whenever you ask anyone who's a comic fan, Batman, X-Men, etc., to think of Joel Schumacher, they think of the bat nips and cod pieces. And personally, I don't even think that was the worst part of Batman and Robin. The worst part in my eyes, it was the casting of Mr. Freeze, the portrayal of Mr. Freeze, how quippy he was, whether that was Schumacher's idea or Schwarzenegger's. Having a silver Schwarzenegger making all these ice puns, I'm sorry, it didn't fit well. Especially when they were also trying to involve the Heart of Ice story from BTAS, which developed Mr. Freeze into such a great villain. I think that it would have been better if they just left Mr. Freeze until just a few years later, if they could tell that Christopher Nolan was eventually going to lead Batman films, going to create Batman films. If they had just left Mr. Freeze until then, and then had Carol Strachan play a big, tall, almost spectral and very silent Mr. Freeze. He was the big, tall guy from Men in Black in Star Trek TNG, and he was in the Addams Family. One of the best things that came out of Schumacher's Batman days, including his first one, that in a very campy, colorful way involved Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face versus Val Kilmer and Chris O'Donnell. Best thing, I think, was Kiss from a Rose on the Grave. The Seal song was, it was for the Schumacher Batman and Batman Forever. And the video is directed by Schumacher. It wasn't vibrant, it wasn't as campy, it wasn't as over the top. Aside from that first scene as the Batmobile is just going across the screen. What I enjoyed about it most is that it's mostly just Seal in front of a bat signal. The blue, black, white tones, it reminded me of the feel of Birds of Prey, the television series, which also had, what's his name, Michael Gough, the Alfred from 1989 right through while I was in high school. So that is what Schumacher is most scandalous for. And he was setting out to make it campy. Apparently he was also setting out to make it homoerotic. He was one of the first successful out directors, which very admirable. And looking at the Wikipedia page, looking at his work as a whole, I had no idea the other works that he had done prior to this. He was the one who directed St. Elmo's Fire, the Brat Pack movie with Emilio Estevez and I think Ali Sheedy, Rob Lowe, maybe? A whole bunch of the Brat Pack members. And it wasn't a John Hughes film. It had some grit. It was about people about 10 years out of college. And an age range that you didn't often see depicted in television or in movies. Especially before the days of like Friends and Will and Grace. It was before that era. So that is a well-beloved film by the general public. And then he did a In Excess video for The Devil Inside. Devil Inside was a great song, and his video was decent. It wasn't Michael Hutchence dropping figuratively and literally the lyrics as he sang New Sensation, but it was a good In Excess video. He also did Lost Boys and Flatliners, which I've heard about but haven't seen. In short, Schumacher, he was bold. He had great visions. Great might be too strong a word. He had bold visions. He decided what he wanted, and he realized that. And to that, I give him a lot of credit. So thank you for what you did, Joel Schumacher. No thank you for the bat nips, but thank you in general for that costume motif. Thank you for that great chemistry between Dick Grayson, Bruce Wayne, and Alfred. I felt that really captured the sweetness of their relationship. So here's to you, Schumacher. If you share these views, if you're like me, conflicted in how to see Schumacher in retrospect, if you're a big fan of his, if you aren't a big fan of his, if you like this video, please give it the thumbs up down below. And if you want to see more videos where I'm geeking out over comics, movies, pop culture, Gundam, like this MS over here, or Ghostbusters, big fan of Funko Pops. If you have any suggestions for me to cover, leave comments below, subscribe. Thank you, and this is Ken Coleman wishing you a good night.